All right, good evening and happy Thursday, you guys. It's LaRonda Scott with Daymark Realty back with another episode of Thriving Together. And I am excited to be bringing my son back to my virtual stage. Caleb, say hey to everybody.
Hello, hello. How are you guys doing?
I don't know if you remember, I had Caden and Caleb on, I think it was what, back in August before you guys went back to school?
I think it was around that time. I'm not, no, obviously it's been some time, but
Okay.
for sure.
Well, I brought Kaden back because she had finished her first semester. And I told her, I said, you finished your first semester. I'm seeing how you've matured. Things have changed. So I brought her back kind of just to catch up with her. And I thought, shoot, we are just days away from graduation. So I wanted to catch up with you to see what you thinking. You're literally less than a month away from graduation.
Yeah, I couldn't be more excited. It's been a long 5 years. With that extra year with playing ball and everything like that. But it's been a good one for the most part. Enjoyed, all the people that I've met, all the relationships that I've, made and strengthened over these last 5 years, and just
Mhm.
all the experiences that I've had on and off the court. In
Yeah.
various cities, places, trips, you know, teams, arenas, all these different places. So I'm grateful for it. It was great. It was a great 5 years, but being ready to move on to the next chapter would be an understatement. So.
So you mean you don't want to continue on, jump right into another degree? You'd like
No,
take a
absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would be very happy, no longer ever needing to step into a classroom. So.
eventually, because like you were just talking about your Spanish class and the grade that you're trying to get there in case you ever want to get an MBA. So it's in the back of your mind right now.
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking about it until she, brought up the idea because I went to her office to have her, calculate my grade and stuff like that. And she was like, "Yeah, but
Mhm.
if you wanted to go back to school, they look at your transcript and things like that. So you want to have the best grade possible." And I was like, "All right, well, I guess
Mhm.
I'll, try and put my best foot forward."
So you essentially have one exam that stands between you and your degree, right?
Yeah, pretty
When's
much, pretty
when's
much.
that exam?
That is Monday at sometime during the day.
Okay, Monday. Sometimes I need you to figure out when it is so you
Yeah,
don't
I'll look.
miss
I'll
an
check my email
exam.
and double check and see what time it is. But yeah.
So 5 years of college. I'm going to ask you a crazy question. If you think about Caleb from, let's say, high school, what are three words you would use to describe yourself then? And like, what are three words you would use to describe yourself now? Like a then and now.
I'd say then, man, naive, um, naive, shy, and I want to say like shelled up. Honestly, I feel like didn't really go and experience much, outside of basketball through high school and going to college, especially where I was at Georgia State to begin with, being in Atlanta and not being on a traditional campus where I'm mixed in with regular people and just going and doing and seeing whatever I could get my hands on. I feel like I had a lot of great experiences, to kind of bring me out of my shell and kind of help me find the kind of person that I was and wanted to be.
Mhm.
Three things I would say now versus then. I would say confident, um, confident. Let's see, seasoned. Like I said the other day, confident, seasoned, and ambitious. I want to, ready to take the next step and kind of work towards building my future of hopefully financial freedom and happiness and
Mhm.
contentment with the life that I've built for myself. So.
What I think is really cool about your experience is that when you were younger, I can't remember how old you were. You literally wrote down all of your goals and created a plan to how you were going to get there. I
Yep.
think you ended with college ball. I can't remember where you ended, but
I think I ended with the NBA, and
Okay.
of course, as a kid, everybody wants to make it to the NBA, but I eventually turned into you just making money playing basketball. Whatever avenue that may be, and I feel like I'm on my way to do that here soon. So on the other side, it also said pediatric brain surgeon, which is completely out the window. So
You did. But again, that was a long time ago, and experiences kind of shape where you go, what you want to do, things of that nature. But how's it feel to know that you actually wrote yourself a plan and you followed that plan and saw it happen?
um, I feel it's good, knowing that as a kid I was able to kind of say those things and write it down and maybe not think about it on a daily basis or consistently, but just putting it out there and saying that that's what I wanted to achieve and having that in the back of my mind. I feel like that kind of helped me stay on course and stay level headed on what I wanted to do, what I wanted to achieve, and it all has come true for the most part. So just extremely grateful to be able to be in the position that I'm in. So.
What would you say to other folks that are, one, they're going into college, but going into college as a college athlete? Would you do it all over again? And what words of advice do you have?
Yeah, I would absolutely. It is well worth all the blood, sweat, and tears that go into it. The experiences, the relationships that you make are stronger than I feel like you would be able to make. Not playing sports in college. Just going through going through the fire and going through the adversities of practices, lifts, games, losses, wins, championships, first round exits, injuries, all these different things. I feel like, those build extremely strong bonds with, the people, or they help you build extremely strong bonds with the people that you're around and, stuff that's going to, last a lifetime. I feel like you can't really, maybe you can, maybe I'm biased, but, I feel like it's the best way to create those relationships is through sports, through, you know, coming to the gym every day and working towards a common goal with whoever you have on the roster, coaches, players, trainers, from top to bottom. So
Was there ever a time you were like, what the heck am I doing? Why am I doing?
absolutely, absolutely. My freshman year, if I'm not mistaken, I can't remember what we were doing or what we had just did the day before, but I remember stretching in the hallway outside the gym. And before we practice, we have to run into the gym and run around the court. And I was
Mhm.
tired and didn't feel like doing it. I'm like, man, this is not for me. This is, I don't know what I done got myself into. I'm tired. This is, I think this is in season at this point. I'm like, man, I'm not playing as much as I want to. Um, I'm playing. I'm on a scout team. Tired every day, lifting, running, doing all this extra, and what's the I kind of lost sight of the end goal. So
Mhm.
there's definitely. I feel like every athlete has that point. Unless you're in the top 10, 15% who come in their freshman year and just kill it. Can't
Mhm.
do anything wrong, and it kind of feels like they're on top of the world in a sense because they dominated at the high school level and come to college and do the same thing. It's got to be a great feeling, but that doesn't happen often. A lot of times when you come in as a freshman, you don't achieve the expectations that you had set for yourself because you don't really know what it's like at that level and what it really takes in order to be good at this level. Um, so I feel like for the most part, everybody questions and it's like, man, is this really for me? And then for the most part, people get over that hump and continue on the right path. But some fall off, and I've seen that through my career as well. Teammates going the wrong way, doing the wrong stuff, and ruining opportunities that they once had. So
Mhm. What what kept you grounded in it? Like what got you up off that floor with the stretching? And it's like, you know what? I'm gonna keep pushing.
just I feel like initially, um, it was the regret that I knew that I would have after if you know God forbid that I just gave up on it. I knew that I'd wake up one day and be like, man, like it wasn't that hard now. I didn't. give up a free education just because I didn't want to run. You feel me? So I don't know. I feel like that on top of just wanting to make family proud, make my friends proud back at home, um, and just stay committed to what I told myself I wanted to do. I just felt like I couldn't really live with myself if I were to just let it all go. Never really been one to just drop something just because it gets tough, and it's gotten really tough at times, mentally and physically. But just didn't want to give up on it. Something I've been doing my entire life and didn't know what would come after. So why not stick with what as long as you can, until it forces you, until the ball eventually does stop bouncing and force you to take another avenue, and hopefully whatever avenue that is after I am done playing, after I do retire, it's set up well to the point where I can jump right into it instead of me being forced into it. So
It was so odd hearing you say that word just now. So when I do retire, like Kaleb retiring from something.
yeah, right. It does sound crazy, but yeah, that's what everybody says. The ball does stop bouncing, and it is technically a
Yeah,
retirement. So
yeah, it is. You'll be retiring and then going into something totally different.
yeah,
So, I mean, being in college, you don't have anybody, your dad and I, we used to remind you of stuff. You set your clock, call you, make sure you were awake, make sure you were here, make sure you were there. You had none of that.
no, none of it. Especially where I started off at, Georgia State and Atlanta. I didn't really have the traditional college athlete, when they show up their freshman year, they get to campus, they're sharing a bedroom, and they have somebody else to depend on, whether it's waking up or remembering deadlines or doing this and doing that. It's always supportive. But for me, moving into a one bed, four bed, four bath, everybody having their own space, with two guys that had been through it, had found their path, found their routines and stuff like that. I felt like I was on my own in a sense in terms of just finding my way, figuring out what I needed to do on a daily basis, and just kind of building a routine that was effective and allowed me to be better and better each day.
Mhm.
But that's much easier to do in different college environments than others. I feel like mine was definitely on the more difficult end because there were so many distractions, so many other things I could be doing with my time.
In Atlanta, most definitely.
Yeah, for sure. All the other things that I could be doing with my time that looked great to do, but probably weren't the best for me, and definitely partook. But um, it wasn't to the complete detriment of my basketball. You know,
No,
uh,
Mr. COVID 4 times. But
yeah,
yeah, I'm
yeah.
wearing my mask. I'm doing this. I'm doing that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Me and Kobe definitely we know each other well for sure.
You really do.
Yeah.
Really do. If you think of, I'll say, any one thing that you would tell Kaleb before in preparing for where you are now, what would you say to your younger self?
Um, relax. Everything is not gonna go the way you want it to go. Um, your time will come. Stay humble. You know, um, appreciate the process of getting better every day, and just don't let anything knock you off your pivot. Don't let anything deter you from what what you really prayed on, what you really wanted to happen for yourself. A thing that people say, I don't even know if it's just on social media, but it's crazy that
Mhm.
sometimes they say you wake up and your dreams are looking you right in the face, and you don't even realize it sometimes. And I feel like at that point, being a Division I basketball player is one of my goals throughout high school, and I still remember the feeling of getting that first scholarship offer to ECU, and having all the ones lined up, coming in every other weekend. So just know that it isn't all going to be easy, and it isn't going to take the path that you wanted to, but just enjoy the process. That's all. That's all I. That's what I would say. So,
So what you say?
yeah.
So what are you looking forward to most in this new chapter?
Um, just I'd say living and experiencing another country for free, essentially.
Pretty much.
Paid to fly somewhere and experience another culture and play basketball. Um, so I feel like I'm blessed to be able to do that. And a lot of people, view it as, oh, he went overseas because he couldn't make it to the NBA, or it's NBA or bust, blah blah blah. But I feel like it's far from that. From anybody who really knows basketball knows that it's far from the truth.
Mhm.
There's plenty of money to be made, plenty of leagues to play in, with plenty of great basketball players, around the world. So yeah, just enjoying being in another place, trying to take it in and not miss home too much, because I know I will eventually. But yeah, just excited to try it out and see what ball is like somewhere else, around the world.
But like I told you, I don't. As long as you were somewhere safe, I am open to it. As long as there's a plane and you have a place for Mama to lay her head, those are only two things I require.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
That is it. Well, I will not keep you long because I know you said you had some work and stuff to do. But one of the things that I thought about, you said a little while ago, in terms of people that know basketball know that going overseas is far from the truth, the whole NBA thing.
Correct.
And I don't envy you, your generation at all when it comes to social media and stuff like that, because you have things coming at you from all over the place. We didn't have that. Once we left school and we weren't around anyone, it's like things just shut down.
Yeah.
How do you handle all the things? How do you handle all the things?
I say just not really giving any attention to it. It's cool. It's cool, getting all the praise and stuff after a good game or an all scholarship offer. Somebody does this, somebody commits here, somebody's transferring here, somebody's doing this, doing that. I mean,
Mhm.
I try not to pay too much attention to it. It's cool to see, keep up with, but I feel like once you start putting value into it and really really caring about what your perception is online, I feel like that's whenever you jump you jump into the rabbit hole of getting consumed with other people's thoughts and attention from others, and how others perceive you and things like that. So I feel like in terms of like preservation of your self-worth, I feel like paying too much attention to online noise and social media and stuff like that is just a bad route to go down. So
Amen to that. Was there a time, do you remember when the switch kind of flipped for you on that, where you realize I'm putting too much value into this?
high
Or
school,
always been that
high
way?
school, absolutely. I remember whenever I was before I started getting recruited, 16U and junior year of high school. Um, prior to that 17U summer, whenever the offers all started coming in, I was seeing guys that I was playing against and playing better than, getting scholarship offers, and got former teammates getting scholarship offers, and guys that I, felt that I was better than and that I was
Mhm.
competing against, day in and day out, getting opportunities that I wanted. And eventually it did come. But prior to that, just scrolling through Twitter, and for me, I was connected to everybody my age at the time,
Yeah.
16, 17, 18 years old, some older, some younger. And it just felt like every other swipe was, this person has received an offer here, this person has received an offer here, this person is going on a visit here, going on a visit there. Hey, this dude's a 3-star recruit, he's getting attention from this list of schools, and it'd be like 15 schools on the list that I'd be like, man, I would love that kind of that kind of noise, that kind of attention. Um, and whenever I felt that starting to weigh on me, I feel like I kind of just threw it out the window and just let it be. Didn't want to, tried not to care too much about it, and I feel like I had conversations with maybe some coaches or dad or one of the two. I can't remember,
Mm-hmm.
but just kind of was like, run your own race. It'll come eventually, and just let the work show. And ever since then, I feel like I've not really cared too much about who's doing what, where. Obviously you look and keep up with your peers and things like that. But when it comes to how I feel about myself and my journey, I don't really doesn't really you know doesn't really affect me as much as it would some others.
Speaking of journey, in a post that you made right after your last game with PC, you talked about your journey and really feeling like it was what you needed. What would you say about your journey? Do you feel like it was crafted for you? What would you say about it?
Yeah, if I'm being yeah, I really do feel like it was. I
It
mean,
wasn't an easy one, I'll tell you that,
yeah,
but
it wasn't an easy one, but looking back on it, like I feel like it was perfectly crafted to make me the person that I needed to be going into um, my next phase of life. If if that makes sense. My first
Mhm,
3 years, were spent really, you know, putting myself out there, going and trying different stuff, um, enjoying, being around like-minded people, kind of making friends, talking to different people, building different kinds of connections, and just doing stuff that I never really had the freedom to do, as a kid in high school. Um, and probably I won't say it was to the detriment of basketball, because I really don't think it was, given the position that I was in and the guys that I had above me. But yeah, those first 2 years were spent just really just enjoying myself and just taking it all in. Year three rolls around, and I feel like I'm ready to lock in, and I've waited my turn. I've done everything I needed to do. Worked as much as I needed to work, and all the guys that were above me taking my minutes. Not that they didn't deserve them, but
mhm,
playing above me, doing whatever they need to do. They had either graduated or transferred. I feel like I was next up in line, and with the new staff coming in, things like that, and them all the animosity with the guys they decided to play, and what my role ended up being on the team versus what I thought it would be coming in, and what it was portrayed to me as whenever they first came onto campus. It was it was a slap in the face, and um, yeah, it was a slap in the face, and forcing myself to continue to be a good team guy. Not bring any extra adversity into the gym. You know, even though we're losing every other game we play, sometimes worse. Um, just continuing to just be a good guy. Honestly, I'm just trying to
mhm,
just come in and not make anything worse. Just continue and do my work. Blah blah blah. I feel like that was a real test of my character and my, the kind of person that I was. And then coming out of that, going into the situation here, going into a staff that's on the complete other side of the spectrum when it comes to
mhm,
caring about players, caring about development, wanting guys to be the best player that they could be at the end of the day, wanting guys to expand their games, and giving them confidence to do things that they might not have the confidence to do themselves. Um, which was the mold that I fit. I needed those kind of coaches to bring it out of me to
mhm,
be the player that I didn't know I could be. And then for some guys who are overly confident, kind of bring them back down to earth, let them know that, they're not everything that they think they are in their head, kind of keeping that balance between the different guys on the roster. I feel like they did a phenomenal job of that. And, kudos to them for what we've been able to accomplish, these past 2 years. Because prior to me coming here, the team was 5-28, and then we went. We have two of the top 5 seasons in school, or two of the top 4 seasons in school history these past 2 years, and just kind of turning the program down and pushing it, turning the program around and moving it forward, all while, you know, having great relationships, having meaningful conversations, coming in the gym and, getting workouts in, and the whole time we're just talking about our days and stuff that's going on in the media, movies and actors, just random stuff. And, going and sitting down in the coach's office and actually enjoying my time and just having, just real person to person conversations instead of, you need to do this, get in the gym and do this. Hey, I want to get some extra work in. Can we work on this? No, I want you to do this because this fits our offense. And, this is what we want you to do. This is the player we want you to be. We want you to do this, this, and this, and nothing else. It's I feel like that wasn't the kind of system that that was best for me. It's great for some guys that are just can put blinders on and, run through a wall for whatever coach, tells them to do. But, and I feel like, for me as a player, I'm able to do that at certain times. But, what's the end goal? I'll run through a wall, but what's on the other side of it? So, that's what I'm thinking. So I feel like, my journey was very uniquely crafted, for myself. And during, as I'm going through it, I don't really realize it in real time, but sitting back, after 5 years and looking at how my college career unfolded, I feel like, I'm like perfectly set up to jump into, what's coming. So.
Well, your dad and I are super excited for you. We're waiting for where that next chapter is going to kick off with, but I guess we'll know that July, you said? June, July?
June, July. Yeah, around that time.
Okay. With any last words before we get off? And you get ready for that Spanish test.
Yeah, I do need to do that. Study a little bit for that. I feel like I've divulged everything I needed to say about college and my career and things like that.
Well, I would say, I guess, words of wisdom for high schoolers getting ready to jump into their freshman year.
Like I said earlier, just take, what was I going to say? Take, oh man, I'm losing my words. Roll with the punches, I'll say. Take everything as it comes. Like I said, it's not going to go, more than likely, hopefully it does, but it's probably not going to go the way you think it's going to go. You're not going to come in and, just be the guy that they're relying on, because there's other guys on the roster, especially nowadays, that have played college basketball for 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 years. These are grown men you coming and playing with and trying to take minutes from. So just, try and come in with a level head and be humble about what you're going to be to a team and the role that you're going to have, and just, like I said, consistently work and prepare every day for the role that you want, not for the role that you're in. That's what I was told. So.
Love that. Well, thank you for being on this evening. Thank you for giving everybody an update on you, because a lot of things have changed since the last time we spoke, and more changes to come, but excited to witness your journey. I appreciate you.
Yeah, for sure. No problem.
All right. Love you, man.
All right. Love you too. Say it again.
I said get some studying done.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.